I'm just left speechless. Um, how was the fashion in the 50s? What do you remember from that time?
Let's see. The kind of fabric people wore depended on how much money the family had, really. But most things were made of cotton. Acrylic didn't exist back then. Honestly, acrylic wasn't a thing, you know? It was all cotton. So, you had to and iron it again, and again. And as soon as you sat down, that was it. It got all creased again. That's right. Exactly. There were no mini skirts. Not yet. At least not in the time I'm talking about. Skirts came down to the knees. That was for the younger women. The older ones wore the midcalf, and the little girls too, about midcalf. You see, low necklines were only for actresses. Not for regular women or girls. No. And one generation before me, they didn't even wear lipstick. Not even lipstick. If a woman wore lipstick, they'd say she was from the arts, you know? They'd criticize her. There wasn't really makeup either. That didn't exist. And we didn't have money to buy anything anyway. Maybe in the cities it was possible, but not in the villages. There were a few powdered products, a brush, and you dab on a little bit. I started painting my nails when I was about 12 or 14. My brother would go with me, so I wouldn't have to go alone, to another village, and I'd buy an old-fashioned little bottle of nail varnish. Sometimes I'd also get a bit of cologne, but never real perfume. For nails, there were all sorts of colors, pink, red. The only one they didn't have was white. And white was my favorite. I loved white nails, you know? There were heels, but only for the young ladies. Listen to what happened to me. I was 15, and my friends started wearing heels and stockings. But my mum said she didn't want me wearing either yet, because she thought I'd look like an old woman. You see? Anyway, I had a suitor. And when we'd go out, I felt embarrassed wearing flat shoes and white socks, so I used to take the socks off and put them in my pocket. We were very particular about how we looked back then. And for everyday wear, well, always a dress. For example, they'd buy us clothes like this, a dress for me, and for my brother, a pair of underpants and a shirt for the holidays. Some shoes, and our socks. The socks were huge so they'd last the whole year. You'd have to fold half of them under to make them fit. We looked a right mess. Honestly. That outfit was saved all year for church, for Sunday, and all the special celebrations. You'd only wear it on those occasions. Then the following year, when you got new clothes, the old ones became your everyday clothes. You see. Not like now, where every 3 months people feel they have to change clothes because it's out of fashion. Back then, it was a full year, or more. When you got something new, you kept it nice for the dances and all the social events in the village. And the next year, you'd get another outfit, and the old one became your regular wear. For every day. Hairstyles. The simplest you can imagine. Long hair in a ponytail or not, with fringe or without. In my village, do you know how all the girls and women wore their hair? They all had perms, those tight curls, like a roller set. You've seen those, haven't you? That was the look. Then I went to the city with my cousin for a while. We both grew our hair long and decided to dye it. My cousin said, "Cousin, let's dye our hair. Will your dad tell you off?" I don't think so. I never do anything that would make them scold me. Come on, let's just put a bit in. So, I had a kind of bob cut, and we dyed our hair just a little bit. Not a strong color, just a light tint. When my suitor saw me, he liked me right away. He said I was different from all the other girls in the village. He said, "I like that woman." Because I had a different style, you see? I came with another look. So he asked someone in the village, "Who's that girl? I think she's lovely." And the other one replied, Well, if you like her, go talk to her. She's young, never had a boyfriend, and comes from a good family. Really nice people, you know?
So, how was the relationship between neighbors at the time compared to today?
Well, since it was a small village, and I can only speak for mine, relationships were good, you know? Like, let's say, I don't know. There was a fire in someone's house. Because, you know, there were chimneys back then. If a chimney caught fire, all the neighbors would rush to help. And well, that's what being neighbors meant. Back then, everyone knew each other and it was as if everyone was family. People really looked out for one another.
However, there would have been envy too, right?
Oh, of course. Absolutely. But not as many bad things as there are nowadays. For example, if someone fell ill, and back then not everyone had access to healthcare, a neighbor would go round the village collecting from the others to buy that person their medicine.
I see, like a little fundraiser.
Exactly. Nowadays, thank God, we don't need to do that anymore because we all have healthcare. But back then, it was such a kind gesture. And the village where I lived was more like a hamlet. The nearby big town had a proper council. So the council would give a little money for the town's fiestas. But then, 4 or 5 young men, they were like stewards, would go door to door, collecting more money to make up the rest. And they did it properly, yes.
Did you go to church every Sunday?
Well, there were some who didn't, but generally speaking, yes. You see, there was, let's say, a group of people who wanted to associate with those of higher social standing. And obviously, people of better position would go to church. So if you wanted to mix with them, you'd go to church too, and that was that.
So they didn't go to church always from a deep faith.
Exactly. It wasn't all about faith. Some people did have genuine faith, of course. But a lot of it was just convenience. Faith and convenience, both. Me and my friend, we even became daughters of Mary, and they gave us a little medal, you know? And we used to help clean the church with the other girls. But you know what? I never understood why they always had it in for me. It made me nervous. I used to tell my friend, don't leave me alone. When you go to fetch water, I'll come. When you mop, I'll mop too. Because I was scared they'd lock me in by accident or something, and I'd die from the fright. What can I say? It was either you belonged to that group, or you were with the, well, you know, the humbler folk.
Did you all neighbors gather in the evenings outside the house and chit-chat about one another?
I don't really remember. Well, people used to sit out in the fresh air. Yes, that's it. They'd sit out in the cool evening air. And my mum wasn't one for gossip, so I wasn't either. You know what I mean? But yes, some people, especially the older ladies. Well, you know, the eagles. The eagles. Yes, the ones who kept their eyes on everything. There were neighbors who were always fighting. One would come over and sit by our fire and start gossiping about the other one. Then, 2 or 3 hours later, or whenever she felt like it, the other one would turn up. And she'd start gossiping about the first. But my mum never took sides. That's why they both came, because they knew she wouldn't side with either one.
Do you remember a historical event that you experienced firsthand?
Yes.